Moving into a new apartment always carries a blend of excitement and apprehension. For me, it was no different. The crisp scent of freshly painted walls mingled with the faint echoes of previous tenants, creating an ambience that was both promising and unknown. I navigated through cardboard boxes, their contents whispering tales of my past life as I unpacked. Among them, carefully nestled amidst childhood books and forgotten trinkets, lay an old porcelain doll. Its delicate features, once charming and comforting, now seemed to hold a subtle hint of eerie nostalgia. The apartment itself was modest yet cozy, with large windows that flooded the living room with daylight. The walls, freshly painted in a calming shade of blue, contrasted with the slightly worn wooden floors. It was a place that promised new beginnings but also carried shadows of the past, much like the doll that now rested on a high shelf in the corner. As I placed the doll, its painted eyes seemed to follow me, invoking memories of simpler times. Yet, beneath the surface of nostalgia, a whisper of unease crept in. The doll, with its quaint dress and chipped porcelain face, held secrets of years gone by, secrets that now seemed to stir in the quiet corners of my new home. I sighed, brushing off the unease as mere jitters from the move. Surely, I thought, it was just my mind playing tricks on me in this unfamiliar setting. Yet, as I settled into the apartment that first evening, a lingering sense of being watched persisted, accompanied by a subtle chill that seemed to emanate from the doll itself. Little did I know, this doll was about to unveil a chapter of my life I never could have imagined, a chapter filled with nightmares and shadows that would test my sanity and belief in the unseen. Night descended upon my new apartment with a quiet intensity. The city outside murmured softly, a distant lullaby of urban life. Inside, however, an unease began to stir, creeping through the cracks of my newfound sanctuary. I'd fallen asleep on the couch, exhausted from the day's unpacking. Dreams, or perhaps nightmares, started to seep into my consciousness. In the midst of that restless slumber, I found myself in a familiar yet unsettling scene. I was back in my childhood home, surrounded by toys and memories long forgotten. Among them stood the porcelain doll, its once innocent face now twisted into a grimace. Its eyes gleamed unnaturally in the dim light, following my every move with a silent malevolence. Then, without warning, it moved. A slow, deliberate turn of its head that sent shivers down my spine. I jolted awake, heart pounding against my ribcage, sweat clinging to my skin. The room was bathed in moonlight, casting eerie shadows across the floor. For a moment, I lay there, trying to shake off the remnants of the dream, convincing myself it was nothing more than my mind playing tricks. Yet as I glanced towards the shelf where the doll sat during the day, a wave of irrational fear washed over me. Its porcelain features were still and lifeless, yet in the darkness, they seemed to hold a malevolent gaze. I told myself it was just an old doll, a relic of childhood sentimentality. But as the night wore on, sleep eluded me. Every creak of the floorboards, every whisper of the wind outside seemed amplified, as if the apartment itself was holding its breath, waiting. I tried to dismiss it all as fatigue-induced paranoia, but deep down, I knew something had shifted. The unease that had begun with a nightmare now lingered like a shadow, whispering of things unseen and unfathomable. Little did I realize, this was just the beginning of a descent into a darkness that would test my courage and sanity in ways I could never have imagined. Several days passed since that unsettling night, yet the unease in my new apartment only deepened. What started as isolated incidents now coalesced into a pattern of peculiar events that defied rational explanation. It began with small things. Keys that I swore I left on the kitchen counter were found inexplicably on the coffee table. A book, meticulously placed on the shelf, would reappear on my bedside table the next morning. At first, I dismissed these occurrences as absent-mindedness or the quirks of adjusting to a new space. But as the days wore on, the incidents grew more frequent and unsettling. Objects I distinctly remembered placing in one spot would inexplicably relocate to another. A faint tapping sound, like tiny footsteps, echoed in empty rooms when I was certain I was alone. The sense of being watched intensified, a prickling sensation on the back of my neck whenever I crossed the threshold of a room. Shadows seemed to linger longer, darker, as if concealing secrets just beyond my perception. I tried to maintain a facade of normalcy during the day, focusing on unpacking and settling into my new routine. Yet, at night, when the apartment was shrouded in silence, the atmosphere became charged with an unspoken presence that refused to be ignored. I confided in my friend about these strange occurrences, hoping for reassurance or perhaps a logical explanation, but even as I spoke, doubt gnawed at me. Was it possible that the doll, with its haunting gaze and unsettling aura, held some connection to these disturbances? As I lay awake that night, listening to the faint murmurings of the city outside, I couldn't shake the feeling that something beyond my understanding had taken residence in my new home. Little did I know these were mere whispers of what was yet to come, a prelude to a chilling revelation that would unravel the fabric of my reality. I couldn't keep it to myself any longer. The strange occurrences in my new apartment had reached a point where they consumed my thoughts day and night. Desperate for some semblance of understanding or reassurance, I arranged to meet my friend Alex at a quiet cafe tucked away from the bustling city streets. As I sipped my coffee, the words spilled out in a rush. I recounted the inexplicable movements of objects, the unsettling feeling of being watched, and the persistent sense of unease that had settled over me like a shroud. Alex listened intently, his brow furrowing in concern as I detailed each strange event. "Have you considered that it might be the doll?" Alex finally ventured, his voice low, almost hesitant. I nodded slowly, my own admission hanging heavy in the air between us. "I've thought about it. It sounds absurd, I know, but ever since I brought it into the apartment, things have been off." Alex took a sip of his coffee, contemplating my words. "You know, there are stories, urban legends really, about objects carrying negative energy, or even spirits attached to them," he mused, his skepticism tempered by a hint of unease. "But it's just a doll, right?" I replied, a note of uncertainty creeping into my voice. "I mean, it's old and worn, but it's not like it's possessed or anything." "Maybe not possessed," Alex conceded, "but perhaps it's triggering something. Have you thought about getting rid of it?" I hesitated, torn between dismissing the idea as irrational and clinging to any semblance of control over the inexplicable events unfolding around me. "I guess it couldn't hurt," I finally muttered, though doubt lingered like a shadow. "Look," Alex said gently, placing a hand on my arm. "I'm not saying it's definitely the doll, but if it's causing you this much distress, maybe it's worth a try." As we parted ways that evening, his words echoed in my mind. Could the solution to my growing unease really be as simple as removing a childhood relic from my home? Or was there something deeper, more sinister at play that even Alex's logical mind couldn't fathom? I returned to my apartment that night with a newfound resolve tinged with apprehension. Little did I know, the choice I was about to make would set into motion a chain of events that would test my beliefs, my sanity, and ultimately my understanding of reality itself. The decision weighed heavily on me as I stood in the dimly lit living room, the doll's presence palpable even in its stillness. It was a decision born of equal parts desperation and hope, a hope that by removing the doll from my home, I could also dispel the unsettling aura that seemed to permeate every corner of the apartment. Taking a deep breath, I approached the shelf where the doll sat, its painted eyes seemingly fixed on me with a silent, unyielding gaze. With trembling hands, I carefully lifted it from its perch, feeling the cool porcelain against my skin. Memories of childhood innocence intertwined with the growing unease of recent days. I moved through the apartment, almost ceremoniously, as if each step carried the weight of a ritual. Passing by familiar corners and shadows that now seemed to hold secrets of their own, I reached the front door. There, bathed in the soft glow of a nearby street lamp, I hesitated for a moment, uncertainty flickering in the depths of my eyes. Then, with a decisive motion, I opened the door and stepped out into the cool night air. Holding the doll in my hands, I felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. Could this simple act truly bring an end to the inexplicable disturbances that had plagued me? Without further hesitation, I placed the doll on the doorstep, a symbolic gesture of release. As I closed the door behind me, a wave of emotion swept over me. Relief, tinged with a lingering sense of loss. The doll was now outside, separated from the sanctuary of my home. Back inside, I leaned against the door, my heart racing with a mix of anticipation and dread. For a moment, the apartment seemed quieter, as if the very walls were holding their breath in anticipation of what would come next. I retreated to my bedroom, hoping that with the doll gone, peace would finally settle over me like a comforting blanket. Little did I know, the night held more secrets than I could imagine. Secrets that would soon unravel with chilling clarity, pushing me deeper into a realm where reality and nightmare intertwined with unsettling ease. The night stretched long and oppressive as I lay in bed, grappling with the aftermath of my decision to part with the doll. In the darkness of my bedroom, I found myself once again thrust into a dreamscape tinged with dread. The familiar setting of my childhood home loomed before me, its corridors filled with shadows that whispered of forgotten fears. And there, amidst the familiar yet distorted surroundings, stood the doll. Its porcelain visage, once serene in daylight, now twisted into a grotesque semblance of malevolence. Its eyes, once glassy and inert, now gleamed with an unsettling intensity that bore into my very soul. With each step I took, the air grew thicker, charged with an unseen presence that threatened to suffocate me. I tried to scream, to flee from the nightmare's grasp, but my voice remained trapped in my throat, silenced by the weight of fear that pressed down upon me. The doll moved closer, its movements jerky and unnatural, like a marionette controlled by invisible strings. I woke with a start, heart pounding against my chest, drenched in a cold sweat that clung to my skin like a second shadow. The room was silent, save for the faint hum of the city outside, yet the echoes of the nightmare lingered, refusing to dissipate with the fading remnants of sleep. As dawn crept through the curtains, I struggled to shake off the lingering sense of unease that clung to me like a second skin. Was it possible that my mind, plagued by recent events, had conjured these visions from mere anxiety? Or was there a darker truth lurking beneath the surface, a truth that defied logic and reason? I resolved to seek answers, to delve deeper into the mystery that now overshadowed my life. Determined to unravel the mystery that gripped my life, I turned to the only source of solace left: information. I spent hours hunched over my laptop, fingers tapping out search queries that danced on the edge of the bizarre and the inexplicable. Strange occurrences in new home, dull symbolism in dreams, paranormal experts near me, each search yielding a mix of speculation, skepticism, and occasional tales that mirrored my own experiences. Amidst the sea of uncertainty, a name surfaced, a local medium known for their work with paranormal disturbances. Skepticism clawed at the edges of my mind, urging caution against placing blind faith in what could easily be charlatanism or wishful thinking. Yet desperation outweighed doubt, propelling me to make the call that could potentially shed light on the shadows that now enveloped my life. The phone rang, each tone echoing in the quiet of my apartment. With each ring, anticipation mingled with apprehension until a voice, calm yet tinged with an otherworldly resonance, answered on the other end. "Hello?" The voice was soft, almost soothing, yet carried an underlying weight of knowledge that sent a shiver down my spine. I hesitated for a moment, gathering my thoughts before explaining the inexplicable occurrences that had plagued me since moving into the apartment. The medium listened attentively, offering little in the way of immediate reassurance, but instead promising to visit and assess the situation in person. As I hung up the phone, a flicker of hope ignited within me, a hope that perhaps, finally, I was on the verge of understanding. Yet beneath it all, a seed of doubt remained, planted by months of uncertainty and fear. I glanced around the apartment, now more a battleground than a sanctuary. Shadows danced along the walls, mocking my feeble attempts at logic and reason. Little did I know, the arrival of the medium would herald a revelation that would challenge everything I thought I knew about the world and the dark forces that lurked within it. The address led me to a quaint Victorian house nestled on the outskirts of town, its weathered facade hiding secrets of its own. The door opened with a soft creak, revealing a dimly lit interior that seemed to pulse with an energy that was both palpable and intangible. I stepped inside cautiously, greeted by the gentle flicker of candlelight casting dancing shadows on the walls. At the end of a narrow hallway, I found myself standing before a door adorned with intricate carvings, a portal to the realm of the unknown. With a steadying breath, I knocked, the sound echoing in the stillness of the house. The door opened slowly, revealing a figure cloaked in an aura of quiet wisdom and serenity. The medium, a woman with piercing eyes that seemed to see beyond the surface, welcomed me with a nod that conveyed both understanding and resolve. "Please, come in." Her voice carried a soothing cadence, beckoning me into a room adorned with symbols and artifacts that spoke of a lifetime dedicated to unraveling mysteries that eluded the grasp of ordinary perception. I took a seat opposite her, the weight of my experiences heavy upon my shoulders as I recounted the series of events that had led me to her doorstep. She listened intently, her gaze unwavering as I stumbled through the tangled web of fear and uncertainty that had become my reality. "I sense a presence," she finally spoke, her words measured yet tinged with certainty, a lingering energy tied to an object of significance. My breath caught in my throat, a mixture of relief and apprehension washing over me. Could it be possible that the doll, despite my efforts to rid myself of it, still held sway over the turmoil that had consumed my life? The medium continued, offering reassurance tempered by caution. "There are rituals we can perform," she explained, "to cleanse your space and sever any lingering connections." I nodded, a flicker of hope reigniting within me as I realized that perhaps, finally, there was a path forward, a chance to reclaim my home and my sanity from the shadows that threatened to engulf them. As the session drew to a close, I left the Victorian house with a newfound sense of purpose. The medium's words echoed in my mind, mingling with the flickering candlelight and the scent of incense that clung to my clothes. Night descended upon my apartment like a heavy shroud, the air thick with anticipation and the faint echo of whispered incantations. I stood by as the medium, her presence commanding yet serene, prepared for the ritual that would potentially unravel the mystery of the doll. The medium's hands moved with practiced precision, arranging symbols and artifacts that hummed with an ancient resonance. I watched in silent awe, caught between fascination and trepidation as she began to weave a tapestry of invocation that bridged the realms of the known and the unseen. As the ritual unfolded, a subtle shift in the atmosphere settled over the room, a palpable tension that tingled along my skin and sent shivers down my spine. The medium's voice, low and steady, carried fragments of words that echoed in the silence, invoking spirits long forgotten and energies bound by threads of time. And then, as if in response to her call, a presence stirred, a whisper of consciousness that hovered at the edge of perception, elusive yet undeniable. Shadows seemed to deepen, coalescing into a form that materialized before us, a specter of memory and regret. "It is the doll," the medium's voice cut through the stillness, her eyes fixed on the apparition that flickered before us like a spectral flame. Bound by a tale of loss and longing, it seeks solace in the realm of the living. I listened, breath held in rapt attention, as the medium unraveled the tangled threads of the doll's origin, a story steeped in tragedy and the echoes of unresolved emotions. The doll, it seemed, had once belonged to a grieving child, a soul tethered to this world by the sheer force of unfinished business. As the revelations unfolded, I felt a mixture of sorrow and awe, the realization that the disturbances plaguing me were not merely random occurrences, but echoes of a history that transcended the boundaries of life and death. The medium concluded the ritual with a solemn invocation, offering peace to the restless spirit that had unwittingly tethered itself to the doll. I thanked the medium, gratitude mingling with a newfound understanding of the complexities that governed our existence. As she departed, leaving behind a lingering sense of serenity, I knew that the journey was far from over. Yet, armed with knowledge and a sense of resolution, I now faced the future with renewed courage and a deeper appreciation for the unseen forces that shaped our lives. Little did I know, the shadows that had once haunted me would now become the guardians of a story, a tale of redemption and the timeless bond between the living and the departed. In the aftermath of the revelation brought by the medium, my world seemed to settle into a tentative peace, like the calm after a storm that had ravaged the landscape of my existence. I spent days reflecting on the journey that had led me to this point, the encounters with inexplicable phenomena, the desperate search for answers, and the eventual unraveling of a tale steeped in sorrow and unresolved emotions. The doll, once a source of fear and confusion, now rested in a place of reverence as a testament to the intricate weave of human experiences. As I stood in the quiet solitude of my living room, gazing out at the city lights that twinkled in the distance, I felt a sense of closure settle over me. The journey had been arduous, fraught with fear and uncertainty, yet it had also been a testament to resilience and the unyielding spirit of inquiry. With a renewed sense of purpose, I took tentative steps forward, embracing each day as an opportunity to forge a path illuminated by newfound understanding and acceptance. The shadows that had once loomed large now served as reminders of the lessons learned, guiding me towards a future imbued with hope and resilience.